This is an extract from the Leader Coronavirus Daily podcast by the Evening Standard and hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for it on your podcast provider.
You could do it here, you could do it here, so find a space of your own.
Teachers have tried to make the return to classes for those pupils who are able to do so in this lockdown as safe and reassuring as possible.
There we go. And look, Braden, all of the lights have gone off, so that means your hands will be nice and clean.
For many children, it's a return to something like normal. For some, though, there are worries about how missing school for months will affect not just their education, but their health. An Evening Standard investigations found head teachers reporting students coming in looking shell-shocked and wary, struggling to socialise, having spent so much time away from their friends. In some cases, teachers have had to clean their pupils' teeth. Our editorial column says the government has to help those who are struggling.
The worrying revelations about the severe impact of lockdown on children must focus ministerial attention and action on what could otherwise become one of the most disastrous outcomes of all from the coronavirus pandemic. Sleep loss, silence, and appearing withdrawn or sad are just some of the manifestations of the mental strain that has been placed upon some. Many who will have suffered most are likely to be from already disadvantaged backgrounds and can least afford further damage. There has, of course, been considerable discussion about catch-up schooling. That's critical, but what our reports show is an equally great need for sustained mental health support from services which are too often overstretched and lacking adequate government funding. Ministers must not fail our children.
Our education editor, Anna Davis, has been working on this story. She joins me now over Zoom. Anna, some of the descriptions teachers have given you of their pupils make it sound almost like some of those children have come back to class as different people after lockdown.
Yes, it's really head teachers in more deprived schools who are saying that their pupils who are already facing these kind of problems with overcrowded housing and poverty, that lockdown has just exacerbated all those problems. And even though the students really want to come back to school, and they can tell that, one head teacher said they're gagging to come back. Their body language has changed, as one head described it to me. They said when they're first coming back, they're wary and their eyes are down and their shoulders are hunched. And it looks like they've been through an ordeal, what one head teacher said.
Yeah, some of the things they've been telling you about are really quite extraordinary. There've been children with not just no money, but no food coming back to school.
Yeah, definitely. Quite a lot of schools have organised food parcels to go home to families. Some of them haven't been able to use the vouchers that they've been given. Some of them haven't got an email address and you need a code. Some of them you need a code to scan to get your voucher back, and teachers have been going to people's homes to try and help them with that. And others have just been working with charities to just get physical food and take it to families. One boy phoned his head teacher because he was so concerned about his mum, who was crying all the time because they didn't have any money. So that was around Easter time. I think the head teacher said they just took a load of food around and Easter eggs because they just didn't have any. So I know with lockdown it's strange because everyone's experience is totally different, isn't it? You know, people who are single, who have had the whole the problem of not seeing anybody and being really lonely on their own, completely different to someone who's got lots of children and can't escape and never has any time on their own. So it's different. It's lockdown is just a strange time, isn't it? But for these vulnerable children, it's you know, their lockdown is very different to somebody who might be in a big house with a lovely garden and access to the internet to do their schoolwork. The teachers I've been talking to are teaching the extreme end of, you know, deprived children.
And has education itself been continuing during lockdown? I know a lot of schools had put a lot of effort in to try and get resources home to parents so that children could try and keep up with classes. Has that been happening?
Yes, they've been obviously some schools have got everything's gone online and it's gone perfectly because their children have the access to a computer. But some of the teachers I was talking to, it's just not been possible because they've handed out laptops to as many people as they can, but they might not have a quiet place to just go and do their work. They might be in like overcrowded house or one room where the whole family's in the room and they've got a shared bathroom with the rest of the block. So in cases like that, it's quite hard for someone to sit down and do their work. So some schools have actually set up areas within the school that a child can go and use the school computer, but doing the online lesson that everyone else is doing at home. So they've actually at least got somewhere to access. And some teachers have been dropping home paper work for children to do and then picking it up and marking it that way. There's some pupils that the most vulnerable who teachers have been phoning every day throughout the whole of lockdown. One school I think has 68 children they were phoning every single day, and the rest of them they were phoning every week just to try and keep in touch with them. But with the best will in the world, they said there are some who won't have picked up a pen or a book for 6 months by the time they go back in September when they do home visits, because some of them are obviously doing home visits as well. The children are still in their pyjamas or they just get out of bed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Is there a worry that there'll be a long-term effect of all this?
Everyone's very optimistic that I've spoken to that they will be able to get back on track. There's a real determination for it not to blight the lives of children whose lives are already being blighted. You know, despite the lockdown, they were already at a disadvantage. So I think teachers and schools are determined to catch up, like educationally and emotionally. So I think, hopefully that will happen.
Search for the Leader Coronavirus Daily on any podcast provider to hear more from the podcast.